everyone, I'm Dan Black and welcome to Mpowertube. In this series we'll be exploring concepts of mindfulness and spirituality in the martial arts. And I'm super excited to have the most fabulous Richard Norton here on Mpowertube, and thanks for being on the show, Richard.
Pleasure, Dan. Great to be here.
Thank you, mate. Listen, we'll start off by talking about the importance and emphasis that you put on spirituality in your teaching and in your training.
For me, spirituality is really about personal responsibility and behavior and actions and the way you conduct yourself. I know, spirituality is often associated with certain religions and everything else. We might be getting off topic. A little bit of my personal problem with a lot of religious sort of attitude is that you separate yourself from that one source, from that being, from that God, whatever you want to call it, which kind of absolves you of a certain amount of personal responsibility. So I think, this is why in martial arts, one of the things that it's attracted me to my start in karate, and of course being involved with Hanshitino in Goju, was the Japanese origins of Goju-ryu, and it introduced me to the ideas of Zen in the martial arts, and again not from a religious point of view or aspect, but more of where the mind is, as a martial arts and in the arts and everything.
Yeah.
And again, gets back to personal responsibility, how not giving responsibility over to a higher being or a higher force that absolves you again of your actions. I think we're all responsible, we're all part of that one energy, that one life source, so we need to be responsible and we need to conduct ourselves accordingly with that one source. And look, martial arts, as we know, is very in the moment producing. What do I mean by that? It's just that, like, take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for instance, which I've been involved in for the last 32 years. There's nothing more in the moment producing than being locked up with another person that's trying to strangle you, choke you, submit you.
Yeah, sure.
Where all you're doing is thinking, wow, how do I get out of this situation? How do I dominate this situation? How do I survive this situation? So it's very in the moment producing. It's a bit like fear, martial arts, whether it's Muay Thai, boxing, or stuff that involves actual contact or one person losing, one person winning, is very fear-inducing. There's nothing more in the moment producing than fear. Mm-hmm. The analogy being, you could be in your house and you're used to being in your house, you use certain noises, suddenly you hear a little creak of a window that's not supposed to creak unless it's being opened, presumably.
Yeah. Suddenly
you almost freeze, your breathing stops, your hearings, all your sight, your hearing, everything is heightened, and you're just in that moment.
Yes.
Deciding, what do I do in that fight or flight situation? I'm getting off track a little bit, but the whole spirituality for me is the active kind of meditative state that we get to into the martial arts. Where we're doing movements that are very much about our own body, the control over all aspects of our being and everything in that particular moment when we're demonstrating a certain... Yeah, exactly that. And that mushin, that almost that no mind, that comes with just in the moment.
And is that in itself, that essence of Zanchin, that's in essence spirituality, right?
Totally, yeah, that's what I mean, spirituality. Everybody would probably have a different definition of what spirituality means for them. I mean, for me, honestly, the spirituality is about just the being of a martial artist. By the way, do not get me wrong, I am so far off finding what the real essence of that is.
Yeah.
If I had that, maybe I'd be a 10th degree. But we're all students, we're all still searching, we're looking for answers, and I have a great little story that I think illustrates for me what I'm talking about. When I was on tour You know, I did bodyguard work for 25 years, and I was on tour with James Taylor, and a member of James' backup band was a gentleman named David Sanborn,
Right.
who used to play the baby saxophone.
Yeah.
He was considered one of the top 2 sax players in the world. So I'll try and keep it short, but we're at a concert rehearsal. I'm sitting up in the bleachers and I'm watching David play, and I'm hearing these sounds that didn't seem as related. We would get a plane coming over. That wouldn't seem like connected to the way I'm normally hearing a guitar lick or what somebody would do. So I'm listening to this. Anyway, we're getting a tour bus, and I said to David, you know, God, I'd listened to you play, you know, and it was interesting to me. It didn't sound like what I normally hear from a musician with a particular instrument, you know. It seemed almost unconnected, unrelated to the rest of what people were playing in the band as far as the guitarist, the drummer, and everything else. Anyway, it was a great conversation, and out of that came David telling me that basically he said, no, he said, I'm actually playing all the time. It's totally connected. He said, in my mind, I'm a sax player 24 hours a day. He said, what you're hearing is when I choose to make it audible to something outside of myself, where
Wow.
you hear these sounds and you go, oh, he's a saxophone player and he's playing the saxophone. But he says, I'm never not playing. I'm a saxophone player 24 hours a day, and that kind of blew my mind a little bit, because
Yeah.
then we started talking about the martial arts, and out of that came, rather than us creating movement, we merely punctuate the still.
Wow.
Meaning we put a belt and we put a gi on, and we do this and we do this, and people go, oh, he's a karate person, or whatever, he's a martial artist and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
But the essence of the conversation, or what I got out of it, is that as David was saying, he's a musician, he's actually never not playing. We also are martial artists 24 hours a day.
Wow, so
We are
true.
never not being martial artists. Only when we choose to make a bit of movement do we make it obvious to everybody else. So the spiritual aspect of that for me is what I try and get across to students is, and a favourite saying is, it's not the 2 hours on the mat, it's the 22 hours off the
Wow,
mat.
yeah, fantastic.
That you're a martial artist 24 hours
true,
of the day,
Richie.
you know.
Yeah,
So it becomes a very, very personal spirituality in how we project ourselves, how do we behave, what are our manners, how's our courtesy, how do we interact with our fellow students, society, our wife, our family, our kids, if we happen to have them, and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess moving on to mindfulness, in my first book, Power Code Therapy, I quote Lao Tzu, and he says, if you are depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. And if you're at peace, you're living in the present. How do you try and stay in the present, and how important is that in your day-to-day life?
Oh, it's important, but it's difficult. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a difficult chart. Judy and I love listening and reading about Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, I'm a
who's
huge
all
fan.
about, in the moment, and all he really sort of suggests is that you try and be in the moment more than not, which is a great way of looking at it, meaning to remind yourself when you start, he talks about all these past experiences of what you did last week, a year ago, 5 years ago. They're just stories. The future are just stories, because none of it's real yet. The only thing is real is this moment, and to try and just drag yourself out to appreciating that moment is what it's all about. He tells a great story of being alone at a post office, and there was a particular delay in getting to the lady who finally served him, who apologized for keeping him waiting. He said, "That's okay. I was just enjoying a beautiful moment." Meaning, the what is of that. You could be in traffic, for instance. You'd be aware of all you're thinking was, "Oh, I'm half an hour late." And everything's about this future anxiety. When suddenly you go, "Okay, well, let's have a look. Oh, wow, look at those trees. Look at those flowers. Look at those houses. Oh, what are those people doing?" In other words, just bring yourself to the moment and enjoying what is. I think, it's a wonderful state of mind. But again, difficult to do. But if we can just keep reminding ourselves again, that's the only thing that is real. It's not about future, it's not about past, And again, getting back to martial arts, I think when we train, what we try and get from students is to just be totally focused. That whole idea of kimet, a punch. It's that whole force and your whole being into the execution of that one punch, for instance, what that means in that moment. I mean, it's very hard in a short time. We can get a little too latch on our thinking and everything, but to answer your question, it's very important to at least be more in the moment than not. Look, how many people, I often say, you can walk down a beach and you can have the most glorious sunset, and so many people could be completely oblivious because all they're thinking about is the debt they have or the argument they had, or they've got to go home to this, or what they're going to do next week.
Yeah.
But they completely missed this free, glorious moment of this glorious sunset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to stop and actually go, oh, wow, and just enrich your soul with that free moment that whatever source is giving you, I think is an important thing.
Yeah, wonderful.
And by the way, the stories I relate to are experiences that I've had in my life. They may not mean the same to other people, but when you ask what it means to me, is I try and draw from lessons that I've learnt through being around oftentimes what I call people at the top of their game. And another example of trying to be in a moment is I was on tour of the Rolling Stones, and Keith Richards was asked, who's the guitarist everybody would know from the Rolling Stones.
Sure.
He was asked once about Jumping Jack Flash, and the reporter said, don't you get sick of playing Jumping Jack Flash? You've played it thousands of times and everything. Don't you get bored? And the answer just never left me from all those years ago, and his answer was no, he said, because I'm still learning how to play it.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He said, you might think it sounds the same when you hear it at a concert time after time or whatever, but he said, every time I play it, I'm trying to hit the note a little differently. The cadence, the timing or whatever, is trying to do something a little different, trying to make it better. And I related that back to our martial arts. You can suddenly become very robotic and you can be thinking of everything else rather than, when really, if you're in the moment, all you're thinking is, how can I just make that movement a little more perfect? My expression of the art a little more perfect. And never accept that it's good enough. Never accept the mediocrity of what you're doing, which I believe is what he was referring to.
Indeed.
And I've often said, people look at someone like Keith and all they think is drugs, sex, rock and roll. They miss the passion, the lifelong passion of a person that has devoted his life to being the best he can be as a musician and everything. And that little insight I got from him and how to relate to the martial arts never left me, and I think it's a great example.
It's wonderful. Brilliant analogy. I love that.
Challenges, boy, you brought up challenges before. I mean, life is full of challenges. I just honestly believe we wouldn't be here in this earthly form unless we weren't meant to be facing challenges.
I agree.
You've got to get winning and losing and everything else. This gets back again to the, what I learned from Hunchitino, that the dojo, our training area, is like a miniature philosophy of life. You are going to win, you are going to lose, you are going to experience pain, you're going to experience, moments of just happiness and all of that sort of stuff. But hopefully the dojo prepares you for the obstacles and the challenges you get outside of the dojo. When we line up, as you know, there's a lot expected of us when we're young and students. We want to impress our teacher and want to do the best we can, and it's difficult, it's hard. The first time I was ever asked to break tiles, something like 5 tiles, it's like, oh, no way I can do this. I'm going to break my hand, I can't do this, but with the prompting and the help and the instruction of someone like Hunchitino to convince you can do it, that moment when you do that first break and you achieve it and you totally break through that obstacle that's put in front of you, how life-changing is that, and how much does that prepare you for that job at the office where you're given an assignment you think you can't do, where you can either go, I can't do it, and run away from it, or you go, you know what, I can do this. I'm going to give it 100%. I'm going to break through this obstacle. And I think that's been a very interesting journey as well, is what that dojo, the obstacles that dojo puts in front of you and how you tackle those, how you overcome them. Look at rank, where you line up. You line up in a karate school. I often say to students, you earn where you stand in that line with blood, sweat and tears. You could easily leave, you will never move up that line, or you might move a third of the way up and you will leave. But the ones that, you know, there's very few that actually get the black belt in martial arts and legitimate arts and everything. What a testament to commitment and focus and zeal to get up that line where you become a black belt and better still become an instructor. You know, it's always obviously the overcome that decides how you move up that line. Again, I think that prepares you for the challenge that everyday life is going to give, and hopefully helps you overcome them. Doesn't mean you're not going to feel pain and you're not going to lose sometimes, but hopefully you're going to win a lot more than you lose. Either way, it's a lesson no matter how you look at it.
Rich, I've been inspired and empowered by our conversation today. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful insights with us, and many thanks for joining us on Mpowertube today. And everyone, I hope you've enjoyed our chat and with the most fabulous Richard Norton, and look forward to seeing you again on Mpowertube.
Great, thank you, Dan. Enjoyed it.